Hello, good morning or good afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. Um, I am recording this video today, and I apologize for those of you who asked for the recording when this webinar was originally presented. I forgot to hit record. So here I am about 2 weeks later. I apologize. I had a lot going on in life the last couple of weeks. So I'm recording today to be able to send it out to you so that those of you that missed this are able to take part. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to take a look at the webinar for today and talk a little bit about financial planning. What is it? What does that mean? It's a little bit difficult to explain in short terms or just a couple sentences. So it's nice for people to be able to walk through this webinar, and hopefully it'll give you a taste of what financial planning really is, and what it can be for advisors like myself that really do true holistic financial planning. So let's walk through financial planning. What is it and who needs it? What is it is financial planning is an ongoing process. It should be an ongoing process. If you go to a financial planner and they gather your data and they give you this terrific bound book with all this information and they hand it to you and talk you through it and say, here you go, have a good life, that's not going to work. It's good for today and it's good for where am I right now and how is what I'm doing right now projecting that I will do in the future, whether it be for your retirement or whatever goals that you may have for yourself. That type of plan isn't going to work because life changes, as we all know. We get thrown curveballs. We get good things happen to us financially. We change jobs. We have more kids. We have grandkids. Things happen that affect our financial life. And your financial plan should ebb and flow along with you. Another thing, what is it? Is a way to show you how can you reach the goals that you have for yourself? Or can you reach the goals that you have for yourself? I've had to give some bad news to some people, or maybe it's just, hey, you got to work a little bit longer than you anticipated to get to those goals. But wouldn't you want to know? You want to make sure that you're heading in the right direction to get you where you need to be. Most of all, financial planning is not only for wealthy people. Most of my clients are middle class, neighbor next door type of people. They've worked hard, they're saving money, and they want to get to certain goals. And we're finding ways for them to do that in the most tax efficient manner. Again, financial planning is not for wealthy. It's really, I would say for anybody who wants to make sure that they're doing things in the most tax efficient manner. Are they saving right? What kind of accounts should they save to? How do they withdraw from retirement and whatnot? So again, for everybody. What questions can be answered by a financial plan? And when you are going through the planning process, these are just a handful of the questions that some of my clients have asked me. Number one, the biggest one is when I'm working with people at a pre-retirement age and they're, we'll say 50 and above or 55 and above. Can I retire? When can I retire? When can I afford to do that? And what does retirement look like financially if I retire on X date or at X age? That's a big one. How does the current financial downturn, and I'm sorry, I typed this up last year when we were in the midst of the downturn. How does any financial downturn affect long-term plans? We know that the stock market's going to go down again, but my crystal ball isn't all that shiny to tell me exactly when it's going to happen. But you'll see when I walk through the financial plan that we run scenarios that show what happens if the market goes down, like it did back in 2008, 2009. What if that happens again to your financial plan, and what does that look like for you? Am I insured properly to protect myself and my family? That's a big deal. I don't sell insurance, but we certainly walk through to say, all right, do you need additional life insurance? Do you need disability insurance or long-term care insurance, whatever it may be? If my clients need insurance, I send them to a local expert that I trust to make sure that they place that type of policy and don't try to oversell. Most of the time, I'll tell you, I get a lot of clients come to me that maybe they're already over-insured. They're carrying too much. So what can we do to change that up a little bit? Or again, there's some clients that come in that they're not well protected and their family could really be impacted tremendously if they were to pass away or not be able to work. So we walk through that for everybody. Am I taking advantage of tax reduction strategies? That's a big deal. And taxes and your financial plan need to be married to each other and be able to make sure that the things that you do financially don't impact you in a negative way on taxes, or make sure that it impacts you positively. The next question, how do I invest in my savings to maximize the probability of meeting my goals? How much do I need to save? Where do I need to save? What type of accounts? How do I get to these goals that I have? Are my assets structured to withstand future volatility? I talked about that a little bit about the financial downturn. When the market goes down in the future, are my assets structured or set up in the most effective way to allow me to withstand that? Estate planning. Do I have proper estate planning in place? That's a big deal. Just like taxes, estate planning needs to be set up along with your estate plan. With your financial plan, and not necessarily set up with it, but make sure that your financial plan and the way your accounts are titled and beneficiaries are designated and whatnot align with what you have in your wills and powers of attorney and everything else. If they don't, then when you pass away, things aren't going to flow the way you wanted them to. So what are your intentions? And let's get those into place. The last one, a lot of questions that I get from clients is, will my money pass to my kids or my grandkids or my whoever, my boyfriend, it doesn't matter who, will it pass to them efficiently after I pass away with little court costs or little attorney's fees? So those are some of the questions that are answered in the financial planning process. There's several more, but these are some of the top ones that I get. So why plan? Why would somebody want to do financial planning? Number one is to know where you stand. Where am I today? How am I headed? Am I headed in the right direction? How am I going to get there? Make sure I'm doing the right things today. Know where you stand. The next is uncover savings strategies. What could you be doing to set yourself up so that you can pay less taxes today, or maybe pay a little bit more tax today to get money into an account that may be tax-free down the road to set yourself up for a better tax future? And it depends on everybody's situation of how that's done, but uncover some strategies. And how do you save? How do you donate to your favorite charity? There may be ways to be able to do that help reduce your taxes today, but the charity still gets exactly what you want them to get. Another reason to plan is to mitigate risk. We talked about insurance. There's other things you can do to help mitigate some risk that is just out there in life as far as finances go, as far as taxes go, as far as insurance goes. What can you do? What can you put in place to help mitigate some risk? And of course, why plan is to make sure that your assets that you worked so hard for are invested appropriately for you, for your tolerance for risk, for your goals. How do you want to get there? So all of these things together and financial planning really does create peace of mind. It creates peace of mind because it lets you know, where am I going? How am I going to get there? And even if the plan comes back and says you need to save a little more or you need to work a little bit longer, there is still peace of mind for that, because then you know when you do eventually walk away from work or purchase that home or whatever the goals are that you're planning for, you know that you're going to get there in the right way. So that does create peace of mind. So when I talked a little bit about understanding how volatility will affect your plan, one of the things I do with every financial plan that I run is that I illustrate how the client's plan will stand up when the market volatility is experienced. So this little clip down below, the stress test, this shows for a specific client. I just kind of clipped it out of their plan and pasted it here. This client was retiring this last year in 2020. And what I do with their plan is show them specifically how in the worst possible case scenario, the year that you're going to retire and you need to start withdrawing money out of these retirement assets that you saved, in that year, what if 2008 happens again? So in this client situation, what if in 2020, their specific investments went down by 22.36%? And then in 2021, their assets go down again by 8.72%. And then after that, average annual return, depending on how they're invested. Okay. But it just shows, what if you take that hit in the year that you need to start taking money out of these plans. And the results from that can show the client, can I withstand that volatility? Can my assets still survive so that I have money left on my last day? Whatever that may be. I have some clients that they want to spend. They want to make sure that they're spending what they have, and they don't necessarily want to leave a whole lot of money behind. I have others that want to make sure that they leave a legacy behind. So again, stress testing this and still showing when we project out from your retirement date all the way till the end of your projected lifetime, can there still be money left even if this situation happens? And if that's the case, again, it provides some peace of mind for them. So I like to do some stress testing on all of my clients' plans. Another thing that I do to ease concerns is use what's called the bucket strategy, which is my technical name for this, right? So when clients are heading into retirement, that's when this strategy comes into place for, not for my 30-year-old clients or 40-year-old clients, but people that are getting ready to retire. The idea of the bucket strategy is in bucket number one is cash, money market funds, short-term treasury bonds, things that are very safe, very secure. You're not going to earn a lot of money as far as interest on these things, but it's very safe. Typically, we want the first 3 to 5 years of whatever this client needs to withdraw from their retirement accounts. So for simple math, I'm going to say this client that we're talking about needs $10,000 a year out of their retirement assets to supplement their pension, supplement their Social Security, and allow them to live their life. Okay. So in this client's situation, we'll say they're 60 years old, they're young. I'm going to suggest that they keep the first 5 years worth of those withdrawals. So $50,000 in very safe, very secure investments. Okay. Bucket number 2 is a little bit more conservative portfolio. So we're talking about the next 10 years. So again, for this client, for easy math, we're going to say $100,000 should be invested in short-term bonds, maybe longer-term US Treasuries, and maybe some really safe dividend-paying stocks. Okay. And then in the bucket number 3, the more aggressive portfolio, that's where you can invest all the rest of whatever this client has in the stock market. Okay. The idea then is when you have an investment manager managing your assets, when the stock market goes up, the manager or whoever's managing your assets at some point will take some of those stocks that go up, sell some, capitalize on some of those gains, and take that money from bucket number 3, pour it over into bucket number 2. All right. In bucket number 2, where you own those bonds, when bonds mature or bonds pay interest, those dollars roll down into bucket number 1. Okay. It's a constant flow so that my clients understand that I have 3 to 5 years worth of my cash needs, very safe, very secure. It allows my clients, this strategy allows my clients to put their blinders on and know that whatever is happening in the stock market is money that I don't need for at least 15 years. Or if it's older clients, these numbers tighten up a little bit. Okay, so maybe it's 2 years worth of cash and the next 4 years worth of in bonds. And then bucket number 3 is things that they don't need for 7 years or more, whatever. But anyway, the idea is clients pay attention to my need for today, my need for the next few years. That's safe, secure, it's ready for me. And if Janice is managing my assets, I know that she's going to pay attention to what's going on in the market. She's going to make changes and rebalance when she needs to. And always keep those cash dollars available to me. What's happening in the stock market, I can put on my blinders, I can ignore it, I have no control over it, and we'll capitalize on the gains when they happen. I hope that makes sense. Is it too late to plan? It is never too late to do financial planning, no matter where you are in life. I have clients that are in their 80s and clients that are in their 20s, and we're doing completely different things for those people. My 20-year-old clients, I have a 25, 26-year-old couple. They're looking to get married. They're not looking to get married. They're getting married in a couple of weeks here. what I did for them, and what I'm continuing to do for them, is more of setting themselves up so that they're saving tax efficiently, that they're making good decisions when they go out to look for a mortgage or purchase a car or whatever debt they're looking to take on, or do I save and pay cash, or choosing what benefits to take advantage of at their employer, and what not to take advantage of. Sometimes people get offered way too many options at their employer that some of the stuff doesn't make sense. So we're really focusing on what do we do today to get you to a better tomorrow, right? For my 80-year-old clients, we're probably working more on making sure that their assets are invested in a most appropriate fashion to create income for themselves, to continue to live their lives. What if we're doing some what if scenarios? What if they get into a long-term care situation or have some medical needs? How are they going to pay for that? And we want to make sure that they're set up appropriately to do that. And of course, we're talking a little bit more on estate planning and end of life planning, making sure that assets are going to flow to their beneficiaries the way they want, talk more about their family dynamics. There's a lot of families now that are blended families, or maybe there's possibility of divorce down the road. And we want to make sure that their assets will flow to the people they want them to go to, and won't get into the hands of somebody, that no good son-in-law, that they feel that their daughter's going to divorce at some point. They want to make sure that if that does happen, that assets don't get into that no good son-in-law's hand. So planning can set you up for a more secure future, no matter when you do that. So what can you do today? One good thing when you're talking about financial planning is acknowledge, what are your concerns? What are your financial concerns? Acknowledge it, write those down, make sure that you understand it. Maybe if you're married or have a partner, make sure that you understand their concerns about finances, so that when you do financial planning, that those concerns are addressed. Put a plan in place to help mitigate those concerns so that you can sleep better at night and have more peace of mind, because you know there's a plan in place for you and for whatever your goals are. You can take care of short-term priorities. Those are things that you can do without looking long-term. You can kind of focus on today. What do I need to do today to make my finances better today? Okay. That is also a part of financial planning, is looking at those short-term priorities, but those are things you can do today, even before you seek out advice from a financial planner, to achieve some of those long-term goals. And then creating the roadmap for achieving those goals is what the financial plan would do. All right, so we are going to look at a sample financial plan as soon as my computer agrees with me here. Okay, this is John and Kathy Paycheck. John and Kathy were our clients of mine. So this is a real financial plan that I presented. I just changed names and redacted all personal information, but I wanted you to be able to see, what does a plan look like? What does it feel like when it's being presented? And get an idea of, just what to anticipate if you do go through a financial planning process. So what I like to do with all of my clients, number one, is when I'm meeting with them to present their plan, after gathering all their information and after putting it together, after going back and forth and asking questions and understanding what they're trying to get to, I put together this Word document that is different for each client, because every client's financial plan is different. So we walk through this. And number one is to walk through, what are their goals? So I reiterate to them, what did I hear from you in the conversations you had? What are you trying to get to? So this client was looking to retire last year. They wanted their plan to be really simple and low cost, and so forth. They wanted to know, when do I take pension? How do I take Social Security? What's the best way to draw down tax effectively on retirement, and so forth. And I walk through these again and make sure that we're on the same page. Okay. And then we go down the next page and we talk about, what is this client's base case assumptions for the financial plan that I put together. So where are you today? Where were these clients on the day that I was meeting them, or right around there, right? So for these clients, their current annual income was $160,000. They plan to retire at the end of May 2020. This client had a pension with the company he worked for, and he was projected to get about $54,000 a year from that pension. And that was their 100% joint and survivor pension. Okay. So for Social Security, when do we show? For them, I showed them starting to collect it at full retirement age. Their annual spending, these clients were they're very frugal. They're spending about $60,000 a year. They have, when you look down at the next one, well, let me go back up there. I'm sorry. So annual spending. When we assume annual spending in retirement, I don't ask for a budget. I don't ask people to send me, what are you spending money on? It's none of my business what you spend money on. What my clients do with their assets is not my business. What I do typically is I kind of back into that number. So we look today and say, okay, this client, they're earning $160,000 together. They're saving X to their 401k plans. I know what they're paying in taxes because I'm reviewing their tax returns. They're saving X into savings account. And here's what and I kind of back into that number. They're spending about $60,000. Okay. These clients specifically said, our life isn't going to change all that much when we retire. We may spend a little bit more. So we make assumptions from that as far as what they will spend in retirement. Okay. The other thing too, is you can see on the annual spending assumed at retirement on number 4 there, is that we assume $50,000 on day-to-day expenses. I inflated that in the plan for these people at 2.5%. And then their assumed spending of about $14,000 on healthcare expenses. These people retiring before age 65. So not everybody's healthcare expenses are going to be that high, but I did inflate healthcare at a higher rate than the day-to-day expenses because that's the way it goes. And of course, you can see then healthcare expenses do reduce at their Medicare age 65. Okay. So let's go down to number 5. This client had assets totaling $2.2 million. Please don't let that number startle you, whether you have more than that or less than that. Again, I work with clients all over the board. Okay. But I'm just showing you with this client, their situation. We kind of break down how they were invested and where their money is. They have a house valued at about $400,000, no debt, no life or long-term care insurance. And then we have to project a mortality age. One of the things we need to do when we're projecting out cash flows is we have to assume how long you're going to live, right? So for these clients, after having conversations and their longevities and their family and their health, which was good, we projected out age 92 for John and age 94 for Kathy, that's how long they would live. And then we run through the actual cash flow scenarios. Okay. And I'm not going to pull the cash flow scenarios up because there's some personal information inside of that, but I want to show you the scenarios that I ran for them. Okay. The first one is everything I just walked through. Their base facts as stated above is I run a scenario that shows if all this happens, you spend $64,000 in retirement every year, that inflates at about 2.5% every year. You spend X on healthcare, that inflates at 6% or 5%, whatever that was. And, all this other stuff remains the same. You live till age 92, 94. What does that look like for this client? So there's an actual cash flow year over year over year, all the way out till the Kathy's age 94, that shows what does that look like? How much is going to be left at the end if everything happens just like that, which it's not going to, but we have to do some projections and we have to start somewhere. All right. The next scenario for these clients is what if they reduced their overall stock allocation from their 57%, I think it was, down to 40%. The reason I showed this is because when I asked them to complete risk tolerance questionnaires, they came back pretty conservative. And one of the things we talked about when we were doing their financial plan is how did they feel, especially last year when the market went down quite a bit? How did they feel? How did it make them feel when they saw their assets go down? And how did they feel in 2008, 2009? And one of the things was a concern from these clients about that happening again. So let's take some risk off the table. Let's mitigate risk, right? Maybe reduce some risk by reducing stock exposure, getting a little bit more some safe and security in their asset allocation. And what does that look like? Again, now we show a cash flow all the way out to age 94 in that specific situation. Then the next scenario, number 3, we show, now we kind of build on these, right? What if you reduce your overall stock allocation to 40%? and your pension goes away in 15 years. So this client really wanted to take and did end up taking his pension as a lifetime income. And one of the concerns that his wife had is, what if the company my husband works for can't continue? Maybe something happens to the company, but they can't continue to fund that pension. So I show, what if that happens? What if in 15 years, your pension completely goes away? The company cannot continue to fund that pension the way they're supposed to. All right. Again, let's mitigate some risk here. What does that look like? These people still ended up in a positive manner at the end of their lifetime, even if something that drastic happened. All right. And then the next scenario, what if you reduce your stock exposure? And what if you take that pension as a lump sum instead? So it showed, what did that look like? What does it look like if you take a lump sum pension, roll it over into an IRA, which is a tax-free rollover, and then you invest it from there and invest it in the 40% stock allocation, 60% bonds and fixed income? What does that look like? All right. Scenario 5, we get into some touchy conversations now. What if John passed away at age 80? What if he doesn't make it out to age 92? How does that leave Kathy? His Social Security goes away. If they chose the joint and survivor pension, which they did, Kathy will continue to get his pension, but the Social Security for John goes away. Kathy's may bump up a little bit when he passes, but there's still a difference in the household income. So I like to show that scenario, even if it is uncomfortable to have a conversation about, just to show the person you leave behind, how does that leave them? Okay. And then the very last scenario, again, the one thing that I added is John lives a long life, but what if in the last 3 years of his life, he's in a long-term nursing home situation? I typically do 1 or 2 years, but this family specifically, John's parents, were in long-term care situations. They were in nursing home situations, and he saw his parents have to spend a lot of money. So he wanted to see, what if I get in that same situation? And again, he was a little bit older than his spouse. So we showed it on him. If they were to have to pay for 3 years of long-term care because they don't have insurance for that, and then he passes away, how does that leave Kathy? Does it leave her financially sound? So that's the type of scenarios we run through. And the different scenarios are different for every client. It's different for what they have, what they need, what their goals are. So I hope that's helpful. After we do that, this is an important part of the plan, but an even more important part is we walk through then some further discussions and recommendations, and we dig down into all sorts of different things with each client. Okay, so this client wanted to roll his Fidelity 401k over to Vanguard. He liked Vanguard. It's where he wanted his assets to be. We talk a little bit about that, and I did help him choose some investments over at Vanguard. They wanted to talk about their health savings account. We did that. We determined an investment strategy that aligned with their guiding principles. Okay. This gentleman, he wanted to talk about some specific funds, or, should I pick a bunch of funds? Should I choose a balanced fund? And we walked through that type of stuff with them. We talked about bond funds. Do they make sense to purchase in his IRA that he has, or should they do it in their taxable accounts? We talked through that. We talked about doing some tax loss harvesting. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but that is something that we look at. Taxes are a big part of financial planning. We talk about rebalancing and when it makes sense to do that. We talk about the bucket strategy, which I talked about just a couple minutes ago, and what made sense for them in order to kind of align their asset allocation with their need for cash. We talked about which retirement accounts should they draw down from for day-to-day expenses. We talk about possibly doing some Roth conversions. I ran some tax projections for this specific client that showed in the first few years of this client's retirement, they were going to have a pretty low income. They weren't going to turn their Social Security on for a few years. They were using savings to live for a couple years. And with that really low taxable income, there is time for them and the ability for them to be able to move some assets over from their IRA to their Roth IRA. Whenever that is done, every dollar that you move from your IRA to your Roth is added as taxable income to you. So be very, very careful and work with a tax advisor or a planner if you think about this. But for this client, it made a lot of sense to do. They would be able to move some money from the IRA to the Roth and only pay 8, 10, 12% tax on that. And it made sense for them. Okay. We talked about Social Security benefits. When is it best to file for each of them? Does it make sense for John, the higher wage earner in the family, to wait until age 70 to choose his Social Security benefits, and why? We talked about a home equity line of credit, maybe establishing that, some beneficiary designations. We talk a little bit about estate planning. There's all sorts of things that are talked about and recommended throughout this plan. Okay. So that's a good overview for you of some of the things that we talk about and look at when we're doing financial planning. And again, I wanted to bring a real plan in front of you so that you could see what it looked like and felt like. And again, depending on client situations, some of the things that we talk about. All right. So we're going to wrap up. It's been about 30 minutes. I think we did good. I try to keep these down to 30 minutes. For financial planning, know where you stand. Even if you're not going to do financial planning anytime soon, understand financially, where are you today? Where are you going? And how are you going to get there? Putting a plan in place will help you figure that out. Understand how you're invested. How are your assets invested and why? Plan for your why. One of the things I like to talk about with clients is, why did you save? Or why are you saving? Are you saving because you need to buy a new car next year? Are you saving because you want to pay for your child's college education or your grandchildren's? Are you saving because you want to retire? And when you retire, you want to travel to Italy or wherever? What is your why? And by understanding that why, it helps you understand how to invest your assets so that you can help get to that why. I hope that makes sense there. Of course, if you're going to seek out advice, find a certified financial planner. Find somebody that you trust, somebody that you can talk to, demonstrates they care about you. If you look at plannersearch.org, that is a way to look for certified financial planners in your area. You can also look at the fee-only financial planning website. If you type in fee-only advisors, there are different advisors out there there's different websites out there that allow you to search for fee-only financial planners, which means they charge you a fee for their advice. They're not going to, or they charge you a fee for investing your assets. Okay. They're not going to charge or get paid by commission. They're not going to sell you an insurance product where they get a commission off the top of that. That doesn't happen with a fee-only advisor. So seek out somebody that works well for you. There are going to be no questions today because this is a recording, but thank you so much for listening. My next session, and I don't have the date in front of me. Let me see if I can pull it up here. July, I believe it's going to be July 8th, Thursday at noon. We're going to talk about estate planning. I will be sending out invitations shortly, and I may do it on the 15th. I don't remember what my week looks like. It's going to be either July 8th or July 15th. Again, if you're reading this, you get my emails, or if you're listening to this, you're getting my emails. So you will get an invitation to the next one. We'll talk about estate planning. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.